On May 8th, 2023, 7 students from 4J School District and 4 students from Springfield School District embarked on a life-changing educational journey. Along with several chaperones from each district, the group attended the Action Institute in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa was the home of what was known as Black Wall Street, one of the most prosperous African-American communities in the United States. That was until the horrific 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Believed to be the single worst incident of racial violence in American history, more than 1,000 homes and businesses were destroyed, and the estimates of death range from 50 to 300, and some say even more.
Over the course of 4 days, this group of students were both challenged and empowered by facing this history, encountering difficult conversations, building community, and expanding their sense of who they are and what they are capable of. This is an account of their experience.
I learned that you need to tell history so you don't repeat history.
I was never taught all this history, and as soon as I learned about it in both the museum and learned from the families who went through that, I felt it was very important. I felt angry, I was like, how could this in our history happen? It really made me upset.
I learned that, lots of it has been hidden, watered down, and underreported.
There was a lot of trauma that they had to endure.
Not only did we get to learn about what's not in history books or what's starting to be in history books, but we were able to talk to people whose relatives were part of the experience. And that was unique and powerful. And the stories that we heard are stories that are not reflected anyplace else.
For many years, kids who had parents who were going through that whole situation, they didn't even know that it happened. The fact that they didn't even know what Black Wall Street was. They lived in an area where so much history happened with their relatives and families, and the fact that they didn't even have the right to know until they were already adults and already living on with their life, that just was very surprising to me.
What I learned was resilience. The fact that so many descendants of the original business owners were now business owners in the Black Wall Street district. They welcomed people in to their shops, eager to share the stories.
We went right across the street to a local Black-owned business, and one of the owners, Cleo Harris, he had descendants from the actual Tulsa Massacre. Growing up, got to learn his true history from his relatives, and from that he told us about it, gave us a longer story about the in-depth stuff that happened, like how there's still no reparations for all the Black-owned businesses on Black Wall Street that got just completely massacred. And there was so many bodies all around that they didn't know what to do with them at one point, so they just started building over them, and they would just leave them under new buildings and a baseball park.
We need to talk about these things, so not only will it not happen again, but we can make amends.
With facing a difficult history, such as what happened in Tulsa, we knew we'd be in for some challenging conversations. However, perhaps the most challenging yet impactful conversation was around a keynote speaker by the name of Jeff Shope. Please note that some images may be triggering. For over 2 decades, Jeff Shope led America's largest neo-Nazi organization. According to Jeff, quote, beginning in 2016, through interactions with the Black musician Daryl Davis and a Muslim filmmaker, Dia Khan, Jeff began to question not only his work, but his entire life. Jeff Shope transitioned from a life that promoted hatred and fear to total dedication to our shared humanity.
I learned that you need to have these challenging, difficult conversations, because if you don't, you're not going to learn anything. For many years, people just we'll never talk about it, but they'll just react. They'll hear about it, they never really listen.
I do know for a fact that difficult conversations is something that we need to have, we need to learn how to have. We can't just avoid them, because the more we avoid them, the more stuff gets swept under the rug.
I felt overwhelmed at times, but I think that it was important for me to feel those feelings.
For example, when Jeff, the neo-Nazi, was talking, everybody was just kind of shaming him and bashing him. But then, a couple people stepped up and said hey, we should listen to what he has to say. And we don't have to agree with everything he says, but at least listen to it. So, we're not becoming what he was.
That brought a lot of emotion to everybody there. And I feel like just him coming out and telling his story about how he went from this person who all he did was hate, and then he came to realize that that's not right, and he's been trying to transition from making all his wrongdoings right. I feel like that was a pretty big experience for me.
As a Jewish woman who had family in Auschwitz, it was a challenge to hear him and see the images that we saw on the screen, and to allow him grace for the changes that he's made and continues to make. And it was a reminder that there are so many of us who shut other people down when we don't understand what they're saying, and we can't hear their voices because we don't allow ourselves to listen.
I come from such a diverse family that I've always known, before you judge, before you say something, put yourself in that person's shoes.
I learned that at a young age, you need to be open-minded and be able to have empathy for that person talking or whoever you're talking to.
Like for Jeff, for example, he did some horrible things in the past. He was like everything we're trying to fight, but then he is trying to change that around and has gone out of his way to try to, tell people that look, I used to be this awful person, but now I'm fighting to make the world a better place. Like, how does that feel for him to be bashed by a bunch of people? But then also to think for all the people in the room who have had maybe their families directly affected by his actions, to think how does it feel for them that he's standing up in front of them and talking? You got to look at all the different sides in the equation.
We need to look at everyone's different perspectives of life, how they've lived, and we need to think about, before I do something, how's it going to impact this person?
You start to find bond and common ground in the differences. It was like embracing and being exposed to the differences and conversating about the differences created this sense of unity and commonality.
I realized that not everyone will understand things the way I understand things, so it's important to understand their perspective and where they're coming from, and try and empathize if you can, sympathize if you have to.
Being in Oklahoma, I had a community. I had people who were of color, because here at Sheldon, there's not very many people of color, there's only a handful. And so I learned that a community is a really big important thing.
Going into it, I knew one person from Eugene, and that had a community as well, learning what the names were, stuff like that, but also people all around the country, they had their own communities built up, but being able to connect those and make it one big community was really important for us to be able to understand our experiences and to see how people's experiences can be similar to you, but you can see it in a different light.
If you don't network and you don't meet new people, then how are you going to make change?
But it's also important to have a diverse community, because you get everyone together and everyone feels welcome, whether or not you have the same history or background as each other. It's important to have people that you can trust and help you reach a goal that you're trying to achieve.
It's a lot easier than we think to connect.
Ken, the free hugs guy, I thought that his speech was just amazing about how he had to break down barriers that usually weren't crossed, and be able to talk to both sides and everybody, and the same level of respect he gave everybody. He gave everybody a hug, not just the people who were fighting for a better world, but maybe the people who were still kind of confused on which direction they need to be moving.
I've never been the best at storytelling. It's definitely something I want to get better at. More than a story, a conversation, a discussion. I really like that, learning how to get from beginning, middle, and end throughout something that only has so much context and details.
The one that I remember the most of is definitely the self-care is social justice, I think it was called. There we got to learn how important it is to take care of yourself as an individual, and how taking care of yourself first, and your feelings, emotion, mental health, physical self is really important in building that voice that we were talking about earlier, because it's important to just take care of yourself for you to be the best you, to share your own story.
Throughout the institution, throughout workshops, I definitely learned that anybody has the power to influence. You just gotta know how to utilize your voice in the right way.
I learned that one person's voice can change the whole room and can make people reconsider or rethink.
It really showed me that being
powerful and being confident really will have you gain followers and gain people that want to be like you, or they want to have the same ideas as you and stuff like that.
We went to a church, I think one of the last days. We were talking about this woman, I forget her name, but she was like 102. She went in front of in the big courtroom and was talking about how, about this and how they should teach about it, I'm pretty sure. And it's really empowering to see someone that of that age, is still fighting and see I'm young, but I can start now and I can keep on doing it the older I get.
One of the main things that stood out to me in terms of the power of influence was witnessing firsthand how much the students, the young people, were able to influence each other, and people who maybe never stood up on stage and read a poem before or shared their story in a room full of people like that, to see them hesitantly stand, open up, and see everybody else supporting them and encouraging that, it just generated this energy.
This was an experience where we got to not only have the students and teachers who have lived different experiences, but the presenters who have had very different experiences share their perspectives, their voices, their experiences. Many of those voices changed us.
The power of influence is definitely important within every community, because if you don't have somebody influencing the next generation, what is the next generation going to look like?
My favorite part of the experience in Tulsa was just it being there, being able to go into the shops, being able to talk to the people who live there, being able to walk down the street and contemplate what happened there.
I think definitely at the church when we were all dancing and then singing and everything, that was really fun.
Nice.
Made me feel like we're all connected.
All these different people in one room that were the same as me, people that have gone through similar experiences, people that have gone through different things. It's nice being able to connect with them and all relate in some way.
I really enjoyed meeting people. Even though I didn't talk that much, I still could hear what they were saying and kind of share my experiences with them too.
Honestly, all of it. That was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Getting, for one, to get out of Oregon, get to venture out in the country, not only across the country, but get to meet other people from across the country as well.
It'd probably be the march. Seeing all those young kids marching down a city that has so much past history and hopefully brighter history going into the future, I feel like that was definitely my favorite part. Just looking around, seeing that streets are cut off for us young people to march, seeing people of all shades, colors, sizes, ages, all of that. It was very touching.
The rally where we got to see the Native American performance, that was nice. I really liked that. And then all the speakers that were there and the songs and the music, it was really nice.
Watching the faces and listening to the voices of the students, of the young people who were there, impacted me the most.
It was really different from my school environment where everyone's why are we even here, But there, everyone was ready to learn. Everyone was ready to find out what they can do to better their community.
Having a bunch of people of color and not color and just everybody young and adults just come and it was a community. Having people realize that, again, the cops, they cut off the streets so that we could show that we care, and that, just having that community there was awesome.
The businesses, the people, just everything, the town itself, which entails everything, all the street art I saw in the alleyways, just beautiful. The town just had so much culture to it.
I think going out to the Black-owned businesses and hearing their stories and hearing way more about the Tulsa Massacre than just the museum, it's really way more powerful hearing it from someone firsthand than reading it on a screen.
It was really the community. I learned a lot of great stuff and met a lot of great people, and I think that really the bonds created, and seeing that all the different people around the world are so cool in their own ways, and everybody has their own background stories and has gone through their own thing.
That has a much different impact than being on the other side of a TV screen or a book.
It was a great experience to see all these different cultures and people and just Black excellence.
This is a big thing that needs to be seen.
It's really important to understand what happened in Tulsa, but also we learned so many other things about how to empower people and how to build a community.
Don't be afraid to say yes to opportunities, because for me, I almost said no. I was scared of traveling. I was like, it's gonna be so many people. I don't think I'm gonna fit in. But then when I went, literally all those fears went away. The people there were amazing. So always say yes to opportunities.
Like you can say that, oh, we learned about the Tulsa Massacre and what happened and how it was bad, right? But you can also say that we learned about how to build your brand and how it can change someone's life and how people can change and how you can build a community.
Like just finding the other people in your community that have gone through experiences and bringing them together, because that's what it was. Even with the school districts, if we can bring in speakers to come and talk, we can bring in celebrities, we can bring in people with a bigger image.
Be to recognize your differences and be able to acknowledge that not everyone is going to agree with you or agree with what you are trying to say.
The man that said that he ran 100 miles, people like him that really make influence in our life, they need to be people that like we can look up to, and people that are there to tell us that there is more to just what we're doing right now, and that we're not just dull human beings living a boring life.
Everybody has their own ethnic roots and different backgrounds and cultures and everything. And I think coming back to here is kind of like almost a culture shock, it's experiencing so many different cultures. I come back to where everybody's trying to fit into one culture, everybody wants to dress the same, look the same, eat the same. And really, I was thinking like, why try to be the same as everybody else? Why not like share your own culture and bring out like what makes you, you?
Man, you just gotta trust yourself. Believe who you are, remember who you want to be, remember who you are. That's all I can really say.
Have an open mind, be you. Don't be afraid to make connections, talk to people.
Listen to what people have to say. Even though you might not agree with it, you can still get something out of the conversation.
Definitely listen before you speak, because a lot of people will hear, but they won't actually listen.
One major takeaway from this experience that we all shared was the importance of having educational opportunities outside of the classroom. We were able to find common ground with individuals from around the country who we now see as our greater community. We hope that by sharing our experience that the door will open for more opportunities like this to be explored.